In this video, I want to turn your attention to something called Factory Recovery Partitions. There are a number of partition types that you're expected to understand on the A+ exam, and I've talked about those in separate sections of the course. You'll find a movie out there entitled Hard Disk Partitioning. There's another one entitled Partition Schemes and Types, and then there's a demo entitled Partitioning and Formatting where I kind of show you a little bit about the interface. Those partitions and working with those partitions are going to be focused on the A+ exam, and you can well expect to see questions on things like dynamic, basic, the primary, the extended, and logical aspects of the whole partitioning functionality. Keep in mind, these Windows partitions that we're dealing with in the course are not the only ones. There are other partitions out there. For example, in the Linux operating system, there's a swap partition, does the same thing as a page file in the Windows operating system. And there is one of these non-Windows dedicated type partitions that you could see mentioned on the exam. So I want to bring it to your attention in this course, and that is the Factory Recovery Partition. Now, what's particularly interesting about this, the Factory Recovery Partition is one of quite a few names that you will see for this type of partition. And the bottom line, the name you'll hear about it quite a bit, is a hidden partition. So what is a hidden partition? Well, it's a primary partition that is on your disk. It's taking up space. However, it's just simply not seen by your operating system. So if you go in through the Windows operating system and go into the disk management tool and start to look at your disks, you will simply not see these hidden partitions. They just don't show up and you won't know that they're out there. Now, there are security tools out there that utilize hidden partitions for all kind of cool things, but just keep in mind, these are not seen by your operating system, and only by using special BIOS tools can you see or access these hidden partitions. Now, especially laptop manufacturers really use these to their advantage, and they get a really cool piece of functionality out of them. They hide a backup copy, and a lot of times it's a system image of an installed operating system in a hidden partition. You can later use this to restore your laptop. Now, there's a number of ways that this is implemented, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, but understand right now that the A+ exam uses some interesting terminology here. They refer to a hidden partition that contains a restoration copy or an image of an operating system as a factory recovery partition. That's not by any stretch an incorrect term. It's just the term that you're most likely to see on the exam. Just understand, when you see the words factory recovery partition on the exam, they're talking about a hidden partition that contains a system image that you can use to recover that. Now, to access the factory recovery partition, there's really two ways. The first way is your computer may be set up that every time you boot it up, you see this little boot menu that says start Windows 7 or whatever, and then there'll be another option, restore your PC to the way it was when you purchased it or something like that. If you see that, then it's very easy to get into that factory recovery partition. If you don't see that option, then here's the way you're going to do it. You're simply going to start your computer up, and as it first starts to boot up, somewhere in that process, you're going to see on that boot menu some instructions. Generally, it's down in the bottom left corner, but the way they're doing these things now, they can be almost anywhere. But it'll give you instructions to press a function key during startup to access an advanced options or a recovery menu. Now, in Windows 7, on most machines, this is usually the function F8 key that runs along the top of your keyboard. And if you press that during the startup, before you actually see the Windows graphical user interface, it will branch the startup off into another option. And by the way, this little direction that you'll see on which F key to press is not going to be on the screen very long, so it may take a couple of startups to see that thing and know what it says. But once you see that and you hit it in time, you're going to be taken to a window that's going to give you some options, and one of those is going to be advanced boot options. And notice right here, you will see you can go into safe mode with networking, safe mode with command prompt. Notice everything you can do here because that's the answer to some other questions possibly on the exam, okay? For a factory recovery partition, you're going to choose this repair your computer, and then they'll take you through some other things that may ask you for an administrator password and so forth. They call it repairing your computer. It's actually applying a system image. And keep in mind, any data that you had saved in that drive is going to be gone. Okay, so a lot of times it's going to wipe the drive, apply a new image to it. You may or may not see this question, but I wanted you to know about factory recovery partitions. At the end of the day, they're just hidden partitions with a system image there. We can boot into these things and use them to recover from a catastrophic problem.